What's happening, people? Craig again. As you do, I like sharing like this. I want to talk about self-awareness because it's touchy for so many as well. It's touchy for me as well. I want to talk about my personal experience of trying to understand self-awareness and trying to figure out what that means for me and what that would mean for somebody else. How to really portray who I am as a person without seeking validation. How to express myself about the kind of man I am internally and who I represent externally, trying to match that, and without taking it too far, with it being misrepresented as coming across as being in my ego, which is hard for so many people to do. We all have ego and we can all get lost in it at times. Ego for me is when you can be too much in yourself, too much in your feelings, in your head or anything like that, and you're not communicating and you're in a zone without any representation about anybody else's feelings apart from yourself, which is apathy for me, which is the opposite to empathy, which is a bit like misled and misconstrued when self-aware people are more empathetic towards others, where they can understand somebody else and their feelings, but yet still be detached enough to understand themselves and their patterns of behaviour and the way they can react and respond to another person without putting them into their feelings, without yourself, like me, being represented in ego and coming across as self-centered and arrogant and trying to misunderstand and misinterpret the other person. And that can be a bit triggering for other people. And we're not all perfect. So sometimes we can be the self-aware person and a little bit in ego without being aware of it too much. And we can be empathetic and self-aware towards other people and understanding their behaviour and how to recognise our own cues and how to act responsibly around others and how to care for that person and their needs at the time you do. And at the same time being empathetic for ourselves and being self-aware of us without being overtly looking like we're seeking validation or we are these people, we are love and light, because love and light is a bit of a fad. I'm not taking it away from anyone that uses that term, because I'm about love and light. But I come from a dark place, so I understand the duality of life, which is key to understanding the representation. What I'm trying to say is, where do you draw the line from being self-aware and empathetic to being a little bit over-concerning, over-giving to somebody, where it can come across as you're being a bit egotistical and a bit apathetic, and you look like you're more looking towards self-fulfillment rather than being empathetic towards the other person. So it's just come to mind for me how so many things are misconstrued within communication. Point being is that when we can go from having a conversation and understanding somebody, which a lot of us do, we can represent each other in different ways, where we can see a person at the point that they're at from that lens and their perspective, because you could have been there yourself or you've seen others and you've worked through it. And then there's the point where you're trying to be somewhere and be a better version of yourself. So sometimes it becomes a bit of an autopilot and you can do it quite a lot and then you get lost in it a bit. And that's where the ego kicks in with the self-centeredness and get lost with being self-aware rather than being empathetic. You become apathetic. And where do you draw the line there? And for me, it's just about finding a balance between the two and understanding that to be self-aware and empathetic is also at the same time sometimes being in ego and apathetic, which is being disconnected from the other person's feelings by getting them to where they need to be. So telling people what they need to hear, not what they want to hear sometimes, even though you know it hurts them and you know it hurts you too. And at the same time, you want to be self-aware and empathetic to the point where specific people need empathy and need self-awareness, and they don't need you to be in ego and be empathetic. And there's a dynamic there which is teetering. It's hard, you know, it's a tough one for me. So for me, I've had to really learn to understand which dynamics I get into in the first place, which behaviours, sorry, apologies, I just threw something down on the floor, which behaviours I can be empathetic to, and what I shouldn't be so empathetic to, but even though still wanting to be a self-aware person and helping another. That's the cross between, for me, where I get ego and self-awareness sometimes a bit hard to navigate through and push through, but with the same intention in the first place, which is I want others to be feeling good about themselves. I want them to be in the best place they can be. And at the same time, I've wanted others to do that for me. And sometimes in my life, empathy and kindness haven't always given me what I needed at the time I needed it. Sometimes that tough love got me to where I needed to be, that the apathy side. So it's, you have empathy, but just not for that person at that time, but you still want the best for them. Confusing, right? Yeah, for me too. So for me, it'd be the switch from self-awareness into the ego side. There's a balance between the two and a shift. And getting the two right every time ain't always gonna hit. None of us hit every time. None of us get it right because none of us are perfect. And becoming aware of ourselves more without becoming too much in ego. So it's one thing to be self-aware, another to be in ego, one to be in a bit prideful, and one to be a bit in your feelings. So it's a toss-up between the two parts of our brains that we use the most, which pretty much, mostly what you use is the cortex and the amygdala, which are the two different, the thinking and the feeling part, which would be where the two sit between. Where's that line? So more, the ego side would probably sit in the cortex, I'd say, and the self-awareness would be more in the feeling part, in the amygdala. Where do you find a balance between the two? And it depends on the situation for me, basically. Some people need a good hug. Apologies for stuttering, I'm not perfect, as you can see. And some people just need to be told what's what. It sounds horrible and dualistic, I know, but like I said, life is duality. You've been on the phone to customer services and said, oh, I really need to return this parcel and I'd really like it if you could do that for me, please, because it's been a bit of a hindrance, and the other person's on, like, yeah, whatever, mate. And he's taken you 5 times, you've spoken to the same person, done the same thing to you 5 times, until you go, I'm telling you what, and you raise your voice, and ego kicks in, and then the reaction side kicks in, and a little more gets done. Because then that person understands you've spoken 5 times nicely, and the one time you've had to step into that, you've had to bring that out, and that's the duality, and that's the understanding, the ego and the self-awareness and the balance between the two, for me, is where I sit. And it's where I try to sit, at least, and that's my little thing for the day. Whoever this reaches, I hope it reaches you in kindness, and I hope you can understand that this is helping me just speak my feelings and try to navigate the ever so current fad and trending world that we live in of the healing journey and the mindset shifting and the changing and perspectives and all the rest of it, because I've been doing this for a long time, trying to be the best version I can be, and at the same time be empathetic for others, and at the same time be disconnected and apathetic enough to be a bit more kinder on myself, a bit more self-aware of me. So that's where I am, and that's where I'll be. Craig.B.Collins. If you haven't already, this is Craig's Corner. Come and subscribe here, please, and see more. Push me in the algorithm, share with anybody you think that might want to hear this, and thank you for listening all the same, and appreciate you. Craig Collins 1111 is a handle. Post as much as I can here, and I'll be sharing, and like I said, if it sounded good to you, stay if you did. If you didn't, thank you for staying when you did.